Hello, it's AlinaGG, and I have a very special guest for you today. I have Sarah Rutten from the Canine Perspective. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Yes, so we were just having a little quick like a little briefing, and you do force-free dog training, right?
Correct.
And what is that?
Correct.
Let's just start there and go, okay, what is it exactly that you mean by that?
Okay, so force-free training, if you think of it, probably the best way to describe it is if you think of it in terms of exotic animal training. Now, don't get me started on animals in captivity and all of that. Like I absolutely hate that, but it's a really good example of when we're talking about force-free training, essentially we're communicating with another species. So force-free training is training that doesn't involve fear or force. Um, so we're encouraging and empowering the animals to actually want to learn, to actually think for themselves, to want to try and work out what we're going on about. And we use positive methods as opposed to punishment or any kind of aversive method. So it's really about empowering the animal to really think for themselves, and that's really imperative for the bond. So if you do think about exotic animals and the training that happens with them, the trainer themselves has a really unique bond with the animal. And you can't punish, and again, animals in captivity, but you can't punish a dolphin. If you're training a dolphin, you can't punish them, you can't smack them across the nose or yell no at them, or scream at them in some way, shape, or form and expect them to work with you. They just swim off and go, I'm not doing this. So, I think we do things in the name of training two dogs because we can, not because we should. And so I'm really passionate about force-free training. I'm really passionate about using techniques that empower the animals and really develop that bond between you and your dog. I'm incredibly passionate about it.
Oh, that's beautiful. And so is it mainly puppies that you start with?
No, I've been doing this for 20 years, and as a canine behavior specialist. And so I have worked with puppies, with older dogs. One of the oldest dogs I've had in classes was 10. So that whole adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I think they're speaking about humans, because it's definitely not the case in the canine world. So I've done work with, I was working for quite a while with assistance dogs, helping people train their own assistance dog to be a psychiatric, or train their own dog to be a psychiatric assistance dog. So yeah, I've done quite a lot over the last 20 years, working with problem behaviors and, or as my husband says, helping dogs with their people problems, but helping people with their dog problems. So it's about teaching, both species how to communicate with each other. And let's face it, we have enough trouble communicating with our own species. So we can use all the help that we can get to communicate with another.
Oh, wow, that's cool. And so with yourself, when you started on that journey, was there something that led you to that work specifically?
I've always been passionate about animals and dogs in particular. So I've always had a passion. I've also always had a passion for psychology. So when I was a kid, I actually toyed with the idea of being a child psychologist. And funnily enough, and then I'd like to be a teacher. And so I ended up working with animals who, and the psychology of animals, and teaching people how to understand their dogs, and teaching the dogs how to understand their people. So I've kind of mixed the roles, but yeah, I've always been fascinated by animals and why they do what they do, and so it was just one of those things. I was, in an office job feeling really unfulfilled, and I sat down one day and just went, what do I really want to do? And I think I was sitting on holidays in an apartment in New York, and I just went, what do I really want to do? I don't want to be, front office reception for a real estate agent for the rest of my life. What do I want to do? And I just sat there and, things started coming, and I was like, I really want to work with animals. And then that went on to, I really want to work with dogs. Well, okay, in what way do I want to work with dogs? Do I want to be a vet? Do I want to be a vet nurse? And just went through the whole lot. And then I went, do I want to be a trainer? And something felt right. Something just, I think my intuition just went, that thing. And so yeah, I was as in an apartment in New York, Googling dog training courses in Australia. And came across one that was force free, and the whole thing just felt right. So yeah, so that was the first of many qualifications, because I'm a bit of a nerd and love to study. And so yeah, that was the start of the journey.
Wow, that's so cool. Just
Mm.
those moments sometimes where you probably get out of your familiar environment. You could be, like you said, you're overseas. You're like, I'm going to look at things differently. It's now or never. Let's just take that pulse check. Where am I? What am I doing with my life? Yes, sometimes you have those moments. You just got to make those decisions and back yourself, right? And we have to make those changes, because no one else is going to do it for us. It's our life. We have to choose.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. And look, I had people right back at the beginning going, what are you doing? You're giving up your full-time job, your real job. You're giving up a real job to go and, play with animals, work with animals. What are you doing? And I was just like, don't know what I'm doing, but it feels right. And 20 years later, I'm still doing what I'm doing. I mean, there's been some periods of burnout and some, because it is quite full on, some health issues along the way, but I keep coming back to it. It's just something that it's in my blood. I can't help it. Can't
Yeah.
help it. I just, I'm so passionate about it. So yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing your passion. I can feel it. It's infectious, and that's it. If it's in alignment with your calling and your soul and your purpose, then of course you'll keep coming back to it, right? And that's a testament to itself. And so with the courses, there's online training courses. Is that right as well?
Yeah. So I've spent pretty much the whole of the 20 years working with people one-on-one and doing in-person classes. And I mentioned before that I've had some burnout and some health issues, and to share and get a little personal, I've spent the last 3 years recovering from mold illness, and it's actually what has brought me to the Sunshine Coast. I was down in the Northern Rivers, and all the flooding that happened in Lismore last year. I ended up with mold illness. Thankfully, our place in Ballina didn't get flooded, but the whole region got annihilated, and it was all over the news, and it was like nothing that we'd ever seen before. And as a result, the whole region is still full of mold. And so I've had to relocate, and my husband and I are in the process of relocating up here to the Sunshine Coast. And so I've spent 3 years recovering. Even though the flooding only happened last year, I didn't even know that I had mold illness before that. So that made it a whole lot worse. So I am still doing one-on-one private sessions, but what it's led me to is to offer some online stuff, so that people, all over the world, whether they're, I have some wonderful, beautiful clients in the Northern Rivers that I, am now not able to see because I'm up here on the Sunshine Coast. But, the online packages, the online package that I have put together is designed specifically for puppies, and can be done, from your own home, anywhere in the world. So it's based on my in-person classes, and it's, incredibly comprehensive. And there's a dedicated Facebook page so that you've got additional support, and you can ask questions and post videos, and lots of puppy spam. Always love the puppy spam. And so, people of all walks of life, anywhere, can actually do what I was doing, do a class with me or a course with me that was only available to, the people in the local area. Now it's basically Australia-wide, worldwide, universe-wide. So that's something that I've been working on and really excited to be releasing.
Oh, that's great. It looks fantastic. And I noticed there was a module on kids and dogs and training them together, because that was, down the line when I get a dog for my kids, then it will be, obviously they're going to be there. They're going to be a factor in their environment, and they've got to learn, even if they're sensitive to them, there's going to be sort of, I guess, with kids and dogs, there can be some boundaries that need to be established. Is that right?
Yeah, look, kids and dogs, it can be a challenging thing, and depending on where kids are in their age group. So a 2-year-old and a puppy is going to be a completely different experience to a 10-year-old and a puppy, completely different experience to a 16-year-old and a puppy. And so, even with regards to the height of the child and the puppy, these are things that people don't think about. So you've got a toddler running around, and a little nipping puppy, well, fingers, hands, and other important body parts are at nipping height. That's not the case for a 10-year-old or a 16-year-old. And so, management with regards to puppies and toddlers is different. The kind of games that they can play are different. The way that children will play naturally may or may not be appropriate with the puppy. And so it's a matter of then going, okay, well, these are the games you can play. These are the ways that you can actually, interact with the puppy. And even the way that we do training, I've had some people who have said to me, I'd like my 2-year-old to be involved in training, or my 3-year-old or my 5-year-old to be involved in training. Well, the way that you instruct a 5-year-old is going to be very different to the way that you instruct a 15-year-old. And, even from the point of view of body language cues, a 5-year-old can't do what a 15-year-old can do with regards to body language cues. And, dogs learn mostly through body language. So it's then about modifying the child's, how do you modify what the child does? And, it can actually be quite complex. There's a lot that goes into training and raising dogs and children together. So, that particular module, I have a feeling, may end up being a course on its own.
Yes, it could well be. Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think gets not necessarily glossed over, but I think it's definitely something, parents who go, I really want to, I grew up with a dog, and it was, we had a family dog, and it was so great. I want my children to experience the same thing. And, I grew up with family dogs, and if I actually don't have children, but if I had children, I've worked with lots of families that do, sometimes there are things that we need to think about and take into account, and developmental stages of the children as well as the developmental stages of the dog are both equally as important. And so, helping families navigate through that, because sometimes dogs end up getting surrendered because, it just wasn't suitable for the children. So even picking the right dog, for the children's ages. Or I get people that say, I had a staffy when I was, a kid, or I had a staffy when before I got married and had kids. I had a staffy and I want to get another one, and they've got a 18-month-old child, and I'm like, might not be the best choice for a child of that age, because staffies, their play style is body slamming, which means your 18-month-old child is going to go flying across the room when your puppy tries to play with them. So, it's those types of things that people don't always think about, and it's that sort of thing that I help families, sort out, so that the child and the dog actually get to be raised harmoniously together.
Oh, that's great. That's very useful. And do you find in general you meet people with your own dogs? Like, it's such a topic of conversation, isn't it, when you must be going for a walk and meet other people with dogs? Have you met new friends that way?
I'm laughing. I'm having a bit of a giggle because my two, we actually have 3 pugs, and my 2 of them are up here with me. One of them is still down in Ballina with my husband. Like I said, we're in the process of relocating. And the 2 that are up here with me have spinal issues. So our walk involves them in a pram and me pushing them around. So I'm the crazy pug lady pushing the pugs around in the pram around Sunshine Coast. So we meet a lot of people, and we get stopped a lot, and they get a lot of attention, and it's actually really nice. It's actually really, really nice. So they love it. I love it. It brings a smile to the amount of people that walk past and go, oh my God, did you see that? And they're smiling. And so it's nice. So we meet lots of people when we go for our walks.
Oh, that's good. Just interesting. Like, let's circle back to, I know we were going to talk more about dogs, but when you say about this mold health issue, I have had that before, and then I needed some supplements and all sorts of things to get over it. It's pretty intense. And did it make you feel like you were spinning, like you were going to faint, like everything was spinning, you were dizzy?
The thing about mold, so I've done, like I said, I'm a nerd, right? So I've done quite a lot of research about the mold that affected me as well. And from what I've learned, it can affect people in so many different ways. So if you have a weakness in your gut, it often will affect your gut. If you've got a weakness in your lungs, so if you have asthma, that's exactly where it's gonna go. So there, like migraines, dizziness, feeling like you turn your head and it takes a while for the world to kind of catch up. I had chronic insomnia. That was my biggest symptom, was I just could not sleep. No matter what I did, I just couldn't sleep. Mental health issues can affect some people in depression, anxiety, panic attacks. I had chronic migraines. I had fatigue, like chronic fatigue. I had, God, what did I have? Really bad gut. It affected my gut really badly, and it ended up affecting my liver and my pancreas and my gallbladder. So it's caused gallstones for me. And because what it essentially does is it shuts down the ability to detox. So your body becomes toxic, and then that affects all of your organs, and your organs start shutting down. So it's nasty stuff. It's really nasty stuff. So it prevented me from working for 3 years. And thankfully, I've been working with a brilliant naturopath up here. And the other thing that I actually learned through doing this is that apparently 75% of the population have a particular enzyme that recognizes mold when it gets into your system, grabs it and gets it out. And 25% of the population don't have that. And I'm in the lucky 25%. So the mold got into my system, and my system went, hi, make yourself at home. So the mold ended up in my system, and my body didn't actually recognize that that's what it was. And it just started proliferating inside me and, started shutting down organs. So, it's nasty and scary and can make you really, really sick. But thankfully, now that I'm out of the mold and, working with a brilliant naturopath and, well on the road to recovery. So
wow,
I'm in a very different place than I was 12 months ago.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, maybe people might be listening to that and going, oh, hang on, a bit of mold and they've had those symptoms. They might really need to make some big changes or move and get some help with some medicine or nutrition and supplements to clear it out. Yeah, it's pretty full on stuff.
Yeah, it's really full on.
And maybe does it affect the dogs as well?
Oh, 100%. So that's actually a really good point. So both of the dogs with the spinal issues, one is about to turn 12. She turns 12 on Thursday. And the other one is 9. And usually pug lifespan is between 12 and 15 years. And we had a pug, my husband and I had a pug that lived until 16 and a half. And spinal issues are not uncommon for pugs, but they usually kick in around about that kind of 12, 13 mark. Callie started showing, so she's the 12-year-old, she started showing signs of spinal issues maybe 2 years ago, so when she was about 10. And Doug's just developed some stuff, and he's 9. So we have a Doug the pug. And so it's very early. So 100% they've been mold affected. So it causes so much inflammation in the body that, what might have been an issue for them later on in life has developed now. That's my theory anyway. So, they're on probiotics and they're having treatment and they're having physio and they're doing all sorts of things. We're rehabbing them too. So, it's been a journey for all of us.
Oh, wow. And so with pugs, that's like such a like a niche breed of dog. Pug lovers, do you feel like they're unique? Have you connected with other pug lovers around the world?
Yeah, pug lovers, pug owners, we are a breed unto ourselves. Hello, all the pug owners out there. We, back in the Northern Rivers, we used to have pug parties, and where all of us puggy people would get together and hang out. They're one of the few. There are a few breeds of dog that you can kind of get together and everyone just, they don't fight. They don't, most of the time they spend they spend most of their time looking around for food and, sniffing each other's butt. That's kind of it. Whereas, you get a bunch of staffies together and that's not going to happen. But yeah, pug people tend to be, I don't know. Yeah, we tend to bond over our pugs quite a fair bit. I find that with French bulldog owners too. They have a tendency to be quite a bit similar. And I think people who have brachycephalic breeds or anything with a smushed up face, tend to be a little bit the same. But yeah, we are definitely one of those people that collect, a bunch of pug stuff and pug memorabilia, and I have pug shirts and pug mugs and pug, doona cover, and yeah, we're a bit pug tragic in our house.
Well, whatever floats your boat. Hey, it's
look, it could be. We're our kids, so our pugs are our children. It could be worse.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, they're lucky to have you. It sounds like you take the best care of them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Callie, the old girl who's nearly 12 now, she was in her heyday, she was a qualified assistance dog, and used to come with me to the old people's homes and go and visit the oldies there, and has been on a flight to Melbourne a couple of times in the cabin and actually helped a little girl who had anxiety while flying, and navigated through airports, and has helped me with my qualifications and used to help me with reactive dogs. I've done a fair bit of work with dogs, with reactivity with other dogs. And she was brilliant at being able to read the body language of the other dog and actually, help to calm them down. And so, they sometimes get to come to work with mum. So that can be quite fun as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So let's go deeper into the connection with people and their dogs and like the healing and the love that can transpire.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What have you seen? Like, what have you seen? Like, intuitively, you were saying you connect, you can really communicate a bit deeper with them.
Yeah. Look, and I don't tell, you don't kind of walk into a consult and go, oh, so by the way, I can actually talk to your dog and your dog is telling me this. I try and word it in a slightly different way because some people just sort of go, okay, she's a little odd. I'm a pug owner, so, it goes with the territory. But I think that when you do have the ability to listen and to hear them, and the beauty of force-free training is that kind of bond develops because the dog is not afraid of you, because the dog is not confused by you. And that's what happens with what's called balanced training or aversive style training. So a balanced training is where you use positives and negatives. And so when you think balanced, you think, oh, well, that's good, it's balanced. But when you're trying to communicate interspecies, it can get confusing for them. I don't know if I'm going to get punished or rewarded for this, and I'm a little bit confused. So whereas with force-free training, if the dog gets it wrong, nothing happens. They just have to try again. So or you take a break because obviously their brains have tapped out, or you've been working too long, or so the idea is that it's animal focused, and you're trying to empower the animal to think and to work with you rather than trying to get them to obey every command that you give. It's a completely different philosophy. And I think particularly what I saw when working with the assistance dogs is that bond that got created between the dog and the animal, between the dog and the human and the animal. I saw dogs that could preempt, migraines, that could preempt seizures, that could preempt panic attacks, that could preempt, or could help. I saw a dog, actually lead a human out of a shopping center after they disassociated. And that was the first time the dog had ever been to the shopping center. I've seen, and not just that sort of thing, even from the point of view of, I have a client, a very beautiful client who had so much trauma in her life that she couldn't leave her house and had very bad agoraphobia. And as a result of her assistance dog, she was getting out to the shops and she was meeting people and talking to people and looking people in the eye, something that she hadn't been able to do for decades. And, the people in the local Woolies all knew her and all knew her dog, and the people in the local cafe all knew her, and she was starting to actually make friends with people. And so the amount of joy that it and the ability to socialize and communicate with other humans simply because of the dog, is just, I get to witness all of that kind of stuff. It's just incredible. There's research about children who have pets and learn how to be kind to pets, to carry that on and are kinder to other humans. So there's so much. There's just so much out there. There's actually new research that's coming out, or that has come out about, and it's very widely known in the assistance dog circle, particularly psychiatric assistance dogs. The dogs that sleep on the bed with you actually helps the bond between you and the dog. It strengthens the bond between you and the dog. And when you think about it, dogs all sleep in together when they often sleep quite close to each other for comfort, for safety, for security. So sleeping on the bed with you actually helps you and them sleep better. There's a lot of research that's actually coming out about that. So, the human-animal bond is something that's, the human-dog bond is something that's particularly special. And I will often, have clients whose dogs, then pass away, and they go through enormous amounts of grief when that happens. And I often counsel my clients about that whole process. And, they often say to me, I just want to get over it. It's just a dog after all. And it's so not. It's a bond like you have with no other human. And so it's something that's really powerful and really special.
Wow. And so, that's a really good point. And if people were going through that specifically and they needed help, could you have a session with them about that, or does it always involve training?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I've done lots of sessions with people, whether it's making the decision, whether it's time to let their dog go, or, the grief that follows that, making that decision, the after they've had to make that decision. It's a tough call. It's a tough call. And it incurs a lot of grief, and people downplay that. It's not just a member of your family. For some, it is their family, and honoring that is really, really important. So yeah, I often counsel people with regards to that. Sometimes we even talk about going to grief counseling around it, and sometimes that's necessary. So it's a big thing. It's a really big thing.
Yeah, I remember with our family dog, she was like a cattle lab rescue, and I remember when she actually had these big cysts all through her body and she had to be put down. My parents, they were living away. They moved away from where I was, and they called me in tears, like asking me to decide, because they couldn't just decide and do it. They needed me to say, just do it, because it was the right thing. But it's like sometimes people need that permission, someone else to confirm that, yeah, this really is the right thing at the right time. And we were all in tears. It was, and it was, we had it for 16 years, and it was a big thing. So
yeah, massive. And I think people underestimate how big it is. And so, and I have people who are like, I can't get another dog, and won't get another dog for years. And they have other people that are like, I need to go and get another dog, and they rush out and they get another one to fill the void. And there's no right or wrong with that. And then people go, oh, is it too soon? Is it not too soon? I don't know when. Any time is perfect. It doesn't. When our old girl passed away very suddenly, we had our old boy that I mentioned, who made it to 16 and a half, and he had a stroke, and we knew it was time for him to go. We had another dog who was 13, and she died very suddenly. She was fine one minute, and then I think she had a major stroke and literally died in my arms. Was there 1 minute and gone the next. And that was 12 years ago. And even still, I can tear up just thinking about her. And within a week, I had a deposit on Callie, who, we have now, who is nearly 12. And, I had people say to me, well, that's really soon. You're ready to replace her. And it's got nothing to do with replacement. It was the fact that I wasn't coping and our other dog wasn't coping. And I needed something joyful to look forward to that was going to help with the grief, help give me something to pour my love into. And, for me, it was the best decision, and when Callie came along full of puppiness and light and spirit, and, it made coping with the grief so much easier. It never, ever replaced Maxie, ever. And, there is a saying that, when one dog goes and you get another one, it just opens up your heart even more to allow more love in. It's got nothing to do with replacing. You can never replace them. So, again,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a big thing. It's a big topic. And I don't think people realize just how much, that whole thing is. The end of life thing for a dog is just as important as the puppy stage.
Yeah. My gosh. Wow. All right. Well, how can people find you and work with you then, Sarah?
Well, they can go to my website, so the canineperspective.com.au, and canine is spelt the actual full word, with a C. So they can look up my website. I'm also on socials, so Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, so they can find me that way. I do one-on-one consultations, so they can see that on my website. And I'm also launching my online puppy program, which launches on the 25th of December, but we're in pre-launch right now. So there's details about that on my website as well.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise in your story today. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me.